And here's part two of my podcast episode with Josh Bauer on his Chipotle challenge.
Okay, so going into the last day there, you ran on the last day, January 31st, you ran 61 miles and you had already run like over like 130 miles in the last 4 days prior to that. 61 miles on the last day. So okay, Blake is there. He keeps getting ahead of you, behind you, and all of this. So what was your mentality going to the last day? How are you gonna put this thing away?
So I was getting some strategy from our friend Ryan Hatt, and he'd
Yep.
been telling me for a while. He's like, you gotta hide your runs. They see what you're doing, and then they're just matching it in the evening. Now, early on, we couldn't really figure out what the best way to do that is because on Strava, you do have the ability to make your activities private. But if you do that, then your activities don't get added to the leaderboard. And the one thing we weren't sure of is if you made an activity private and then later came back and made it public, would it add it to the leaderboard or just make it public, but not actually add that total on there? So I was a little nervous of that of, oh man, I don't want to go through this effort of doing any sort of length of run and not have it count.
Right.
But thinking more about it, we had a flurry of text messages on the final night leading into that last day and came up with a plan, which was, Blake knew I'm a morning runner and I was going to be out there and do a run. So my plan was to do a short run early on that last morning, but then turn off the Bluetooth on my cell phone. And by doing
Ooh,
that,
sneaky.
yeah, there was a bit of strategy going on here. So it was turning off the Bluetooth on my cell phone. So then any activity that I recorded on my watch couldn't port over to the phone and then load up to Strava. Instead, it would just show on my watch that it was saved and that it would upload as soon as it was able to detect the Bluetooth. Um,
Gotcha.
so that is what I really did that last day. So ran I ran essentially 8 miles the morning of, which put me about two segments ahead of Blake. Posted it and then turned it off. And my hope was Blake would see that and have something in his mind of, okay, now I know where we're at. I'm two
Right.
segments behind Josh. This is what I got to do. And then I immediately, after I did that, ran 19 more miles before I went to work.
Oh my gosh. 19 more miles before you went to work.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I will say I did go to work a little bit late that day. Um, so then went to work and then got back out there and started running again around 4:20, 4:30. And Blake didn't actually show up until because he's like an aerospace engineer. And so he has a busy job. But he showed up about 5:15, 5:30, asked me when I had got there and started running. And I was truthful. I told him when I had started running in the afternoon. And so then he kind of had an idea of what I had how many miles I had ran in the last hour. And
Gotcha.
I think at least what I thought was he probably had something in his mind of, okay, I knew Josh was ahead of me by two segments, plus he just ran, whatever he did over the last hour. I just need to beat that through the course of this evening. And when I got back out there, I ran the initial one I did was 21 miles that evening. And then we had the NBC News crew came out about that time. And
Oh,
I
okay.
can't imagine how I sounded on that interview because I was definitely tired when they interviewed us.
Oh,
Um,
you guys did just great. You did just fine.
yeah. So I took a break after then because I will tell you my biggest limiting factor those last few days was my watch. I have an older Apple Watch and it really doesn't like to do anything more than a marathon before the battery dies. And then
Okay.
it likes to take its sweet time to charge.
Oh,
So
jeez.
after I ran, I took a good hour and a half, close to 2 hour break, literally just to let my watch charge. And even then, it was only I think I only got it back up to about 60% of a charge, and started running again. Um, then I was able to do. I think I did 8 miles. Then I'm forgetting now. I think it was 8 miles, and then took another break for a while. Um, and then came back. It was getting close to 11 o'clock at night. Did another 4 miles then, and
And
that
Blake's
was
out there the
one.
whole time doing just running back and
Yeah,
forth
I'll
and
tell you. This is happening, Blake, I think he may have taken one or two breaks to go to the restroom, maybe grab a bite to eat, but by and large, he was out there the whole time because I'd gone over and sat in my car and I'm looking out there as this man is still just running back and forth, back and forth.
And you're trying to estimate, is he outdoing what I did in the morning to compensate?
Yeah, because I am thinking he doesn't look like he's running any faster than he normally does throughout this process. So I think I have a good idea of where he is. And I was still feeling good about myself, especially since I knew what I had in the bag that he wasn't aware of. But I did go back out that last hour. This was one of those times, one of those folks that had been following around came up at after 11 and was like, hey, can I run with you for a bit? And I'm so glad he was there because he made those last 4 miles easy through. So yeah, I was like, man, this is what I want to do. I just want to do 4 more. Can you help me through it? And he stayed with me the whole
way. Were you able to talk very much to him at this point, or were you spend or let him do the talking?
No, I talked to him the whole time. I definitely wasn't going fast. The good thing is late at night in DC, there was not traffic. So
that's true.
Earlier on when I got there right after work, there was a few hours there where you're just like, this is just such a pain of having to stop and start and stop and start.
I just have to stop right there. Do you think it was kind of a cruel joke, the whole crossing the streets? Or did the other cities have to do that too? Do you know?
I know for a fact I saw, because one of the guys who was running over in Columbus, Ohio, their route looked like it literally just went along the side of Ohio State's campus. And I don't think he crossed a single street. And looking at some of the other sites as well, maybe they crossed one intersection. But yeah, from my understanding, and then even seeing one of the articles, it was kind of comparing the different courses. They're like, the DC one was brutal. And the funny thing about it is at one point in time, Blake just squared the block where Chipotle was at, and it was almost the same exact distance. And when you square the block, you don't have to cross a single intersection.
Right.
So, and you wouldn't have to do all the extra back and forth, right? You're just circle, circle, circle each one.
That's true. Well, yeah, because, I noticed in the interviews on the news, so you sent me kind of a link where I could watch on the news, and I kind of Googled it and found it too, that they said something like you ran I don't know what the number was exactly, but they're like, you ran 230 or 20 some miles or whatever. And I'm like, no, he ran a lot further. But they were looking at the Strava segment because, again, they had to double, really, you ran double whatever they said.
Right. Yeah, you ran double whatever they said. And then, depending on when you ended, because if you ended on an up or you ended on a down, you may have ran up the hill more times than you actually ran the segment itself.
Yeah.
So
that's wild. Yeah, they said you ran 200 and some miles. I'm like, this dude ran almost 500 miles. I'm like, that's that's a significant. Because when I hear that, I'm like, oh, that's kind of a lot. That's pretty good. But I'm like, no, you ran so much further than that. So they took just what was off of Strava. They did not take what actually the reality is.
Yeah, and it's fine. It's fair.
Again, they're counting segments, and I guess as long as it's even between you and the other runners, it's okay. As long as it's all equal here. So did you? Okay, so you got there. So something that's really funny is I was looking back at some of the messages you and I sent the following day when I learned you were doing this, because Ryan was kind of keeping me up to speed, and I was like, wow, this is wild. You said something to me really funny. I don't know if you remember this. You said that on the last day you said you had run 61 miles the day before, so this would have been February 1st, and then you said that the last 12 were rough.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, Josh, I can help you understand why that's the case. You had run 49 miles before that. That's why. Plus the 100 and some miles the couple days before that. That's why. So I just thought I would help you on that.
Well, for me, looking back at it, I think I made 2 mistakes. One, I just went and sat in my car, which, probably wasn't the best decision. And then to me, like, I really had no nutrition plan going into it. Which I think when you run that far, you really got to have a plan in place.
Did you ever eat Chipotle while you were doing this? Did you ever go grab like a burrito bowl or something?
I did not. I would have to say before this challenge ended, I can honestly say I've probably only had Chipotle once or twice in the past decade.
What? Man, that's wild.
A lot of that is because my family and I lived overseas.
That's true.
When we did come back here, it was one of those places the kids wanted to go to. And because they never had it. And of course, we took them there. Now, since then, we have gone back a couple of times.
Okay. So now when you finished, you ran 1,083 segments. Is that the correct number?
I think it was 1,345, somewhere around.
345. Okay, maybe I got a message from Ryan when it was like still a couple days before this, perhaps. So maybe that's what I was confused. So over 1,300. You how did it go with Blake? Did you? I mean, here's the deal. I obviously I would want you to win this, but I can't help but feel kind of bad for Blake too. But if you would have lost, I would have felt bad for you. So I mean, how did it go talking to Blake when this was all
Yeah.
done?
So how it kind of ended up, it was a little bit weird because there was some competing, like contradictory information out there as to exactly when the competition ended. So on Chipotle's website that they had talking about it, it mentioned that the challenge would end at 12 o'clock Pacific time. So it would be 3 a.m. out here in the East. Now on Strava's site, it said that the challenge would end at midnight on whatever the local time zone was. So two different sets of instructions out there. So as it got closer to midnight, even earlier in the evening, Blake was aware of the discrepancies out there. I was kind of hoping he wouldn't, because in my mind, initially going out there, I was thinking, well, maybe I can just keep running until 3 a.m. in case Blake does catch up to me. But he was fully aware of what the different rules out there. But I told him, I'm like, I'm not planning on staying out here till 3 a.m. I got to work tomorrow, and dude, I'm going to turn into a pumpkin at midnight. So as it got closer to midnight, I stopped, and then Blake stopped, and because he wanted to make sure he got his run posted just in case it did end by midnight, and potentially needed to have everything loaded up there by then as well. So
and you too, I guess, right? Like you were making sure that you were going to turn your watch back on and like get it all there.
Yeah. So I was in the same boat. And again, I was having some problems with my watch and the power. But essentially what I did was, said my goodbyes to Blake. We got a picture together. I went and hopped in my car, drove a few blocks away, and turned on the Bluetooth on my phone. So I'm not sure at what point, but I saw what Blake had done, and he had ran almost 40 miles that evening. I think he ran like 38 points something. It was impressive to me. I've never ran that far in just one chunk in my life. But as those runs then posted in there, I'm sure Blake took some sort of a break. Goodness, he just ran 38 miles. But when he posted that run, he alluded to in his post that, hey, I just want to make sure these are up there, and kind of indicated that he might not be done yet. So I think he was trying to see what my runs were. But I don't know whether he was taking a break and it took him a little bit. But by the time I got home, he had changed the title of what his run was, and basically thrown in the towel. Now, what I like to think happened was he had that like aha moment at a certain point in time of, even if I ran to 3 o'clock at my current pace that I've been running, I don't actually have enough time to catch Josh.
Right.
At least I don't know if that actually happened that way, but that's how I like to think it played out.
That's true, because I guess that's a good point, because you were talking to him some that night and all these things, but really after that you haven't seen him since then, right? You haven't talked to him or anything?
No. Yeah, we still follow each other on Strava. I did make a plea to the folks at Chipotle, both on Strava and then in my correspondence with them since then, that they, in my opinion, they should be giving Blake, I think what he did, because he ran the second most number of segments throughout the US. He would have beaten every other competitor out there. But I had asked, I was like, come on, that's definitely worth a year worth of Chipotle for the effort that he put in there. So Chipotle has been responsive to me, but they have not actually addressed that question or request that I have had. So I'll ask them one more time. But I hope
I guess you need to
maybe
reach out to message Blake and Strava and be like, did they ever do this, or kind of see his
well, the one indication I have that they haven't done anything is, if you go to Chipotle now has a Strava account. They haven't posted any runs on there or anything, but they only follow the people that actually won the challenge. So they haven't added him in there. And I will say there was one thing interesting that happened to me at one of these other sites. It was out in California. So in Los Angeles, one person got way out there to begin with, got like 300 and some segments, and then stopped around mid month. And what ended up happening was he made a pact with four other runners that they would tie, because they read in the rules that if there is a tie, in the event of a tie, everybody will receive a prize. Now, Blake and I had actually read the same rules, and the way we interpreted them was, well, it says prize. It doesn't say you win a, a
Right.
year
You might win
Chipotle.
like one free burrito.
Yeah. So one of these people apparently reached out directly to the folks at Chipotle and said, "Hey, what's the prize?" And they said it's 1 year of Chipotle free for each person. So
What?
yeah, their marketing folks got back to him. So
The marketing people got back to him and said that all four of them were going to get Chipotle for a year.
yeah, well, and it ended up being five. So it was that person plus the other four that had
Okay, gotcha.
done this agreement.
Would you and Blake, do you think had you known that, do you think you would have just by the end like looked at each other and said, you know what, let's just finish this at the same number of segments?
You know,
Hard to tell.
it's hard to tell because the big thing to me, like early on, even like it wasn't so much about the burritos, right? It was about the competition and that idea of
True. You wanted to
trying
win, and he wanted to win.
yeah, trying to push myself. How can I do this? If that all would have amounted to a tie, I mean, not only would it have been anticlimactic, I would have felt a little bad now looking back at it. Like I did all
Right.
that for a tie.
Right. That's true, because it's not just for the Chipotle. You wanted to win, and he wanted to win, and that was part of the excitement that you were each strategizing of it. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had that. Your strategy would have just been to like tie, which isn't that exciting.
Yeah, we would have like stopped weeks before and just been like, hey, let's let somebody else try to catch up to us.
Is there a part of you that wishes you lived out in California and would have like picked up on this and then just like ran with it and then made all those other five guys like have to like then compete with you?
Well, even those, I mean, like I don't know how many miles it took to get what they ended up getting, but um it would have taken a bit to catch up to them. But yeah, there was many times where I wished I was like, man, I wish I could be at any of these other sites.
But still, they didn't go 485 miles like you did. I mean, you actually did beat them if you're comparing miles to miles, right?
Right. So
that's
yeah,
wild.
in that way, I guess I did beat them. But
for
me, it was all about what was happening in DC, and it was a lot of fun. I will tell you that the guy that finished third, Joe, he's involved with at least two different running clubs in DC. So it was, to me, that's what brought a lot of the local attention to it. I think he knew somebody that happened to work at the Washington Post and even somebody that worked at the local NBC affiliate. So he's really the one that got those things arranged, and or why there was like throughout this, I think I like tripled the number of people that follow me on Strava. I don't know them, but they all know Joe. And so it was fun to get
people from the news that saw you on the news too.
Right. So that was to me the best part of it was, meeting some of those new people, especially there that last week that showed up, and from some of those running clubs, and it was fun.
Well, I was going to say, when it was getting really hard, that must have really helped at the end when you're probably getting pretty tired, pretty worn down, having like the news media attention and people are coming out to cheer you on, and it's doing that probably helped with your motivation a little bit and just some excitement. Like, okay, like actually other people are paying attention. This makes me want to work even harder, I would think.
Well, yeah. Well, to be frank, when I started doing that afternoon run on the last day, I wasn't planning on running 21 miles. I was going to do 13, take a break, try to do another 13, take a break. But Blake was like, hey, the news is coming. It tells me this around when I'm getting close to mile 13. So I just kept running, and I'm like, get to mile 16. It's like, man, when's the news going to get here? Right. And, then we get to like mile 18. And then even when the news first showed up, I want to say it was around mile 18, but Blake stopped for a second. He's like, hey, did you want to talk to us now? And he's like, no, I'm just, I just want to take some shots from around the area, and then I'll come up to you guys. So, I'm running another 3 miles worth of segments before he's like, hey, yeah, I'm ready to talk to you guys now.
And you're like, finally, come on, let's do this.
Yeah, right. It's like, man, good. I have a reason to stop.
That is wild. That is wild. So that's really exciting. So, okay, the thing with something like this is first off, I can't just help but laugh how many miles you did, and it sounds insane, and it's fun. It's a cool story. But when you're I also know that part of being a runner is kind of the internalized kind of the self reflection that you can kind of get through just pushing yourself for whatever it is your goals are or anything like that. I mean, talk to me a little bit about just what this kind of was for you mentally. I think beyond just this running challenge. I mean, because this is like a really significant accomplishment, actually. I mean, it sounds funny, like, oh, you won Chipotle. I mean, but like, what was that like? Like, what was like the your feelings and kind of thoughts like either during, toward the end, or even kind of in the aftermath as you were reflecting on it?
Well, like during it, even early on, like I mentioned, I was thinking I was going to have to do 300 and then later on thinking 340. Only once before have I ever ran 300 miles in a month. And I remember that taking a lot to accomplish. Because I was in my mind, it was like, yeah, that's averaging about 10 miles a day. This is going to be tough to do. So it was just as I kind of broke through those like personal records of mine that I'd had, it was just that sense of accomplishment and like, okay, I did that. Now, well, how much further can I take this, and how much more can I do? It was like each day just kind of coming up and with new goals of what I wanted to do the next day, of how crazy can we make this, and
Yeah.
and then just trying to see that through. But
And you
even
said
that
in
last
the
day, like my goal was 50 miles is what I had in my head. It's like if I do 50 miles on this last day, that'll be awesome. And then
That's
just
wild.
pushing on with that and being like, well, let's see how many more I can get in here before the day's done.
Let's see when NBC gets here, and then I can finally do my interview and go home because it's get your watch
Yeah,
charge,
but
all of these
it was
things.
great. There was, I mean, that's some interesting things there. One other kind of tourist site, if you were, that's on that same segment is it's St. Patrick's Church. It's the oldest church in DC. I think it actually even predates the district. It's from like 1794. But that last Sunday when I was out there running, it was funny. The priest came out early in the morning to walk his dog before there was any services at all, and he saw me and said hi and went back inside. And then he proceeded to have you know multiple sermons and services, and he would see me at the end as he's greeting people as they're
Oh,
leaving.
really?
And on one of the last ones, he gives me like a blessing. And in my mind, I
Oh,
was thinking, was he trying to give me strength, or was that like pity for feeling bad for me just out there as this crazy guy running back and forth and back and forth?
right, exactly. Well, hey, you know what? Take anything you can get at that point, right? So,
Honestly, that's kind of where my mind was.
right.
So it was good.
You told me you sent me a thing afterwards. You said there was a quote that went through your head a bit while you were doing this. Without competition, we wouldn't be able to test ourselves. Where did you get that quote?
So that is it's from the wrestler Dave Schultz. He was an Olympic wrestler back in the '80s, and to me, one of the great American wrestlers. And for me, I getting into running for me really started from wrestling. I really started running to lose weight and keep my weight in a manageable place for wrestling. And
Oh,
then
I
kind of got.
remember. I remember, Josh.
Oh, I'm
Because for
sure you
anybody
did.
for anybody listening, we ran cross country together, and running was like my identity. Wrestling was yours. But then when you started running, eventually you started beating me. So yeah, I know. But hey, I'm happy for
Yeah.
you.
So yeah, to me though, that kind of hit home as this was going on, and especially even like as those thoughts of a tie would come into my head as I'm running along out there. Of like, no, this is a competition. This is what this is all about. Trying to push myself, and see how far I could stretch it each day and go a little bit further.
Yeah. So then you said what did you do to recover in the aftermath? What was that like in the last few days afterwards? Was it
It
brutal? Were you
wasn't.
really sore?
I have to say, it wasn't like I have been worse off after running a marathon. Where it's just like the next day you feel like you can barely get out of bed, and then you take those first steps, and you're like, oh man, I, I wasn't that bad. once I got going, I still have those aches and pains. I felt okay. And that's why, like, I took the next 2 days off, but then on the third day, I was like, I'm going to go for a run and see how I feel. And I felt okay.
Well, it
But,
probably almost would have been like you've run so much. If you totally just stopped, that probably would have been harder on your body if you stopped for too long. You kind of need to keep your body doing what it's been doing, maybe. I don't know.
yeah. And I tell you, going into it, I wasn't 100% healthy to begin with. So for me, a lot of it was even afterwards, it's like, well, I want to keep doing this and see how long. I actually do have a surgery scheduled here for next month that has nothing to do with the Chipotle challenge at all, but I know I won't be able to run for a few months afterwards. So I want to just kind of keep putting in the miles before I have to figure out some other form of exercise for a few months.
Nice. Well, hey man, this was really cool. Congratulations on winning this. That is so cool. You've already eaten Chipotle quite a few times, you said?
Well, so the kind of the cool thing about this, and actually what I was thinking, if I did win, that I'd like to do is not for myself to eat Chipotle 52 times. That would be way too much for me. But was to take my family. I have a family of five, and in my head, I was like, we can go there to Chipotle 10 times this next year, and then I'll even have two extra. So it has worked like a charm. Essentially, what Chipotle did was they have an app that you create an account on, and they just put 52 meals, these little scan codes into my account. So we go to Chipotle, each one of us orders, they scan it. Now they ring us up separately, but then they'll just scan each one at a time, and the total is zero. And it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I
Yeah. So
like
we've gone there twice, and it's been great.
That's fun. What a good memory. Well, hey, congratulations on the accomplishment. It is wild what you did. You and I can stay on for a little bit after this and everything, but that's exciting. Just can't even believe that you just did that. But that's you. Like I said, I think you're a running legend in Washington D.C. now. That's why you got so many followers on Strava now.
No, I don't think I'm a running legend, but I do have to say one shout out to your show though, because there was one particular morning where you helped me get through that morning because I listened to two of your podcasts,
Oh,
and
good.
it's what kept me going. But so they were
Good.
fantastic, and I wish you all the best with the show.
Good. Well, thank you. Well, I'm glad that you enjoyed it, and I'm glad that you were here today. It was so much fun. So, thanks for joining me, buddy.
You bet. Take care, Jeff.
You know, it's still hard for me to believe what Josh did for the Chipotle challenge. He's always been a good runner, but over the last 10 or so years, I've just really seen him take off in terms of the races he does, his consistency. He's fast. He can run a marathon in well under 3 hours, and it's really not that big of a deal for him. And we just saw what he did with this Chipotle challenge. It took a whole new level of determination. Although he ran over 485 miles in that month of January, his final 12 days, he ran over 305 miles. That's over 25 miles on average each day. So imagine he ran almost a marathon on average each day for 12 days in a row. That's nuts. His final day did pull that average up a lot because it was 61 miles. I just can't even hardly believe it. And it wasn't really about the Chipotle for him. It was an opportunity to see how hard he could push himself. And it definitely provides some insight, one, into how hard of a worker he is, but also just how hard we can all push ourselves when things are coming down to the wire. We all have some of that spirit in us, and he was just able to take an opportunity to bring it out. And what a cool accomplishment he can look back on now. And I'm so glad he was on this podcast and we were able to talk about that and share that experience together. And out of all these things that he did in this month and all those miles that he ran, this huge accomplishment, the really big bonus of all is that he got Chipotle for a year. I'm so jealous. I'm actually hungry for one of those delicious burritos right now. Maybe I'll go get one. This is How to Speak Nebraskan.